Doubt is a silent prison that locks away potential before it even has the chance to breathe. It doesn't shout, it whispers, planting questions in the mind, convincing you that you are not ready, not worthy, not capable. It feeds on hesitation, growing stronger every time you choose comfort over challenge, safety over risk. But what doubt fears the most is action, because action is the hammer that shatters its chains. Every person feels the weight of uncertainty. The difference between those who stay trapped and those who break free is the decision to move despite the fear. Waiting for confidence before you act is like waiting for the waves to stop before you set sail. It will never happen. Confidence is not the starting point. It is the reward that comes after you face the storm. Each step forward, no matter how small, weakens the grip of doubt. Doubt thrives in stillness, but it cannot survive in motion. The moment you take that first uncertain step, the moment you try, you prove to yourself that you are capable of more than your mind has been telling you. It is not about being fearless. It is about refusing to let fear dictate your choices. Every obstacle you face is an opportunity to chip away at the lies that have kept you small. Breaking the chains of doubt is not a single moment of courage. It is a daily choice. It is choosing to speak up when your voice shakes, to try again when you failed before, to stand tall when the world expects you to shrink. It is knowing that the mind will always offer reasons why you might lose, but your heart knows the truth. You have already lost if you never begin. The chains will not break themselves. You must rise, take hold of the vision you have for your life, and pull with everything you have. Doubt will resist. It will tell you it's not worth it, that you should stop, that you should play it safe. But when you keep going, when you refuse to surrender, something shifts. One link snaps, then another, until suddenly the weight is gone, and you are standing free. Freedom from doubt is not about never feeling it again. It will visit you from time to time. The difference is once you've broken free, you will recognize it for what it is, a test, not a truth. And you will remember the strength it took to rise before. And you will rise again. Because you are not your fear, you are not your hesitation, and you are not your doubt. You are the strength that overcame them. Your life is waiting on the other side of that invisible barrier. Every dream, every goal, every version of yourself you've ever wanted to become, it's all there, just beyond the reach of those chains. The key has always been in your hands. It's time to stop listening to the voice that tells you to wait. Break free, step forward, and claim the life that has been yours all along. Doubt is one of the most powerful and subtle forces that can hold a person back from achieving their fullest potential. It creeps into the mind silently, often disguised as caution, reason, or practicality, but in reality, it builds invisible walls around dreams and ambitions. When doubt settles in, it begins to whisper questions like, what if you fail? Or what if you're not good enough? These thoughts may feel like they're protecting you from disappointment, but in truth, they're chaining you to a life smaller than the one you are capable of living. Hesitation becomes a habit, and fear becomes the constant companion that dictates every move, or lack of one. When a person is caught in the grip of doubt, even the smallest opportunity can feel like an impossible leap. It becomes easier to overthink than to act, to analyze instead of decide. The mind starts to magnify risks and minimize possibilities, making every step forward feel too dangerous to take. This mental prison doesn't just limit action, it shapes identity. People begin to see themselves through the lens of doubt, believing they are not the type of person who can succeed, take risks, or rise above challenges. Potential, no matter how vast, becomes useless if it is never put into motion. Hesitation is the fuel that keeps doubt alive. Each time you hesitate, you reinforce the idea that you are not ready, not capable, or not enough. This hesitation becomes a cycle. Doubt leads to inaction. Inaction feeds more doubt. And the cycle continues until years pass by without the dreams you once held ever being attempted. This is why so many people live with regret, looking back and realizing that it wasn't failure that kept them from achieving more, but the fear of even trying. Fear is the silent partner of doubt, and together, They create a powerful barrier between where you are and where you want to be. Fear exaggerates the potential consequences of action and convinces you that staying still is safer. But what fear doesn't tell you is that inaction is far more dangerous. It leads to stagnation, missed chances, and the slow fading of ambition. The mind begins to adjust to smaller and smaller expectations until what once felt like a big dream now feels like an unrealistic fantasy. The only thing that can break this cycle is action. Action is the hammer that strikes against the chains of doubt, cracking them open one link at a time. The beauty of action is that it doesn't have to be perfect or even large to be effective. A small, imperfect step forward is infinitely more powerful than endless planning that never turns into movement. When you act, you send a message to your mind that you are capable of making progress, and this begins to shift the narrative away from fear and towards possibility. Action has a way of shrinking fear. The things that once felt overwhelming become manageable when you take the first step toward them. Fear thrives in the unknown, and the moment you start doing, you replace the unknown with experience. You learn, you adapt, and you begin to realize that the catastrophic outcomes you doubt predicted rarely ever happen. With each action, your confidence grows, not because you eliminated fear before starting, but because you chose to move forward despite it. The transformation that happens through action is profound. The mind that was once clouded by hesitation begins to clear, and the identity shaped by doubt starts to dissolve. You begin to see yourself not as someone who avoids challenges, but as someone who faces them head on. This shift in self-perception is powerful because your actions begin to align with the version of yourself you've always wanted to be. You're no longer trapped by the question, what if I fail? But instead driven by the thought, what if I succeed? Taking action also opens doors you never could have predicted. Doubt often convinces you that the path forward must be fully visible before you start. But life rarely works that way. It is only by stepping forward, even into uncertainty, that opportunities appear. Action creates momentum, and momentum attracts new possibilities. People notice movement. They see someone striving, learning, and trying, and that inspires support, collaboration, and chance encounters that can change the entire direction of your life. One of the most liberating truths about breaking free from doubt is that you don't have to feel ready to start. Waiting for readiness is another trick doubt plays to keep you stuck. The reality is, readiness is a myth. No one feels completely prepared before doing something new. The readiness comes from the doing. The courage comes from the steps you take, not from waiting for fear to disappear. The journey to breaking the chains of doubt is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming someone who acts in the presence of fear. Fear may still whisper its warnings, and doubt may still try to convince you to wait. But when you have learned the power of action, those voices lose their control over your life. You begin to see hesitation as a signal not to stop, but to move. You recognize fear as proof that you are growing, stretching, and stepping outside the prison that doubt has tried to keep you in. Potential means nothing without execution. You can have every skill, every resource, and every opportunity, but if doubt convinces you to hesitate, you'll never use them to their fullest. On the other hand, even if you feel unprepared, if you choose to act, you will discover strengths you didn't know you had and possibilities you couldn't have imagined. Action is not just a tool to break doubt's grip. It is the key to unlocking the life you were meant to live. The chains of doubt are strong, but they are not unbreakable. Every step you take, every choice you make to move forward, weakens them. There will be moments when the weight feels heavy again, but you will know from experience that you have the power to break free. Action is the proof that you are capable, the evidence that you can overcome, and the force that will always shatter the limits doubt tries to place on you. Once you learn to act in the face of hesitation and fear, there is no dream too far, no goal too high, and no limit you cannot break. Confidence is often misunderstood as something you must have before you begin. Many people believe that only those who already feel sure of themselves, who are fearless and prepared, can take action toward their dreams. This belief becomes a trap, convincing you to wait for the day when you finally feel ready. The truth is, that day rarely comes on its own. Confidence is not the foundation you start with. It is the reward you earn through experience, through showing up, and through taking bold, consistent steps even when you feel uncertain. When you look at people who seem confident, it's easy to imagine they were born that way, that their courage is a natural gift. But if you study their stories closely, you'll find that most of them started from a place of doubt, fear, or complete inexperience. What sets them apart is not the absence of insecurity, but the choice to move forward despite it. Every skill they have mastered, every achievement they have earned, was built on a series of actions, taken before they had proof they could succeed. Bold action has a way of reshaping how you see yourself. The first time you step into the unknown, you might feel shaky, unsure, even terrified. But with each step you take, something changes. You gain evidence. You begin to see that you can handle situations you once thought were beyond your ability. You start to build a mental library of experiences where you faced difficulty and came out stronger. Confidence grows from these small victories, not from imagining them in your head, but from living them in real life. Consistent action is just as important as bold action. It's one thing to take a single leap of faith. It's another to keep showing up day after day, especially when the excitement fades and the work becomes challenging. True confidence doesn't come from a single moment of courage. It comes from proving to yourself, over and over, that you can follow through. Each time you keep going, when it would have been easier to quit, you send yourself a powerful message: I can rely on me. This self-trust is the foundation of lasting confidence. Waiting for confidence before acting is like waiting for strength before lifting weights. It's the action itself that creates the strength. The same principle applies to self-belief. You cannot think your way into confidence. You have to live your way into it. Every new challenge you accept, every fear you face, and every goal you work toward, no matter how small, adds another layer to the structure of your confidence. The more you build, the stronger it becomes, and the easier it is to take the next bold step. One of the most damaging myths is that confident people never feel fear or uncertainty. In reality, they feel those things often. They've simply learned not to let those feelings decide their actions. This is where consistent steps make the difference. By repeatedly acting in the presence of fear, you teach yourself that fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal that you are growing. Over time, what once triggered paralyzing self-doubt becomes an invitation to expand your abilities. The boldness required to build confidence doesn't always have to mean grand gestures. Sometimes it's speaking up when you'd rather stay silent, trying something new when your comfort zone feels safe, or taking responsibility for a task you're not entirely sure how to handle. These moments may seem small, but they are the building blocks of unshakable confidence. When repeated consistently, they turn into habits, and habits form identity. Before you know it, you begin to see yourself as someone who can adapt, learn, and handle whatever comes. Consistency also creates momentum, and momentum is a powerful ally in building confidence. At the beginning, each step may feel forced or uncomfortable, but as you keep moving, the effort begins to flow more naturally. Momentum makes it easier to take the next step, which leads to more experience, which leads to more belief in yourself. It's a cycle that works in your favor, if you're willing to start it. Another key truth is that confidence isn't about always succeeding. It's about knowing you can recover and keep going even if you fail. This resilience only develops through action. The more you expose yourself to challenges, the more you realize that mistakes and setbacks are not the end. They are lessons. And with every lesson learned, your confidence deepens. You stop seeing failure as a sign you're not capable, and start seeing it as proof you are trying, improving, and moving forward. Confidence also grows when you keep promises to yourself. If you say you will do something and follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are dependable, both to yourself and to others. On the other hand, Breaking promises to yourself erodes self-trust and feeds insecurity. This is why consistency matters so much. It's not just about results, but about the relationship you build with yourself. That relationship is the bedrock of authentic, lasting confidence. The journey to earning confidence requires patience. In the early stages, progress may feel slow and results may not be visible, but that doesn't mean the process isn't working. Confidence builds quietly in the background until one day you find yourself facing a challenge that would have once terrified you and realizing you're handling it with calm determination. That moment is the visible proof of all the invisible work you've been doing. Ultimately, confidence is not a gift handed to you. It is a skill you build. And like any skill, it grows stronger the more you practice it. Bold steps stretch your limits. Consistent steps cement your growth. Together, they create a version of you who doesn't need to wait for the right moment or perfect circumstances to act. You understand that confidence will meet you along the way as long as you keep moving forward. When you embrace this truth, you stop asking, "Am I ready?" and start asking, "What's my next step?" That shift in mindset changes everything. You no longer live on hold, waiting for permission to go after what you want. You start living with the certainty that no matter how uncertain you feel at the beginning, the act of moving forward will transform you into the person you need to be. Confidence becomes not a prerequisite for action, but the inevitable outcome of it. And once you've earned it through bold, consistent steps, it is yours to carry into every challenge, every opportunity, and every dream you dare to pursue. Doubt thrives in stillness. It feeds on hesitation, on moments when the mind has too much time to replay every possible failure and magnify every imagined obstacle. When you are motionless, you give doubt room to grow roots, to wrap itself tighter around your thoughts, and to convince you that you are not capable of moving forward. It thrives in the space between intention and action, turning the smallest uncertainties into towering walls that seem impossible to climb. But the moment you begin to move, no matter how slowly, something shifts. Doubt begins to lose its hold because motion creates progress, and progress creates proof that you can, in fact, act despite uncertainty. When you take action, you disrupt doubt's cycle. Doubt wants you frozen, caught in the loop of what if scenarios, but motion interrupts that loop. Even if your first step feels unsteady, it breaks the rhythm that doubt depends on. Action forces your attention outward, toward what needs to be done, instead of inward, toward your fears. The mind can't fully focus on both fear and forward movement at the same time. With every step, you create small wins, tiny pieces of evidence that weaken doubt's argument against you. Progress, no matter how small, has a compounding effect on your confidence. It's not about leaping from the start to the finish in one move. It's about stacking moments of effort, one after another, until the weight of those moments crushes the voice of doubt. This is why even imperfect action is far more valuable than endless planning. You can't think your way out of doubt, you have to move your way through it. In motion, you start to see possibilities you couldn't see while standing still. Doors open, ideas emerge, and momentum begins to carry you forward. Doubt is loudest before you begin. Before that first step, it has no competition. It's the only voice in the room, and it shouts every reason why you should wait. But the moment you take action, its volume lowers. You start to replace imagined fears with real experiences. Where there was once uncertainty, there is now evidence you tried, you learned, you adjusted, and you move forward. This transformation doesn't silence doubt completely. It may still whisper. But its words lose power when you have real proof of your ability to act. One of the most important truths about motion is that it doesn't have to be fast to be effective. People often think they need to make massive progress immediately to weaken doubt, but the reality is that even the smallest step forward creates a psychological shift. When you move, you tell yourself, "I am doing something." And that action, however small, breaks the paralysis that doubt thrives on. Over time, these small steps create momentum, and momentum is the enemy of doubt. Momentum works like a shield. The more consistent your movement, the harder it becomes for doubt to reattach itself. This is why it's easier to stay in motion than to restart after stopping. The first step is always the hardest because doubt is at full strength then, but every step after that becomes slightly easier as you build rhythm and confidence. Momentum also creates clarity. Many of the fears and uncertainties you had at the start begin to fade as you gain a clearer understanding of the path ahead. What seemed impossible becomes manageable simply because you're no longer viewing it from a distance. You're in it, navigating it step by step. Progress doesn't just weaken doubt, it changes the way you interpret challenges. When you are still, obstacles look like proof that you shouldn't move forward. But when you're in motion, those same obstacles become problems to solve, not reasons to stop. You develop a bias toward finding solutions instead of dwelling on limitations. This mindset shift is crucial because doubt is rooted in the idea that you won't be able to handle what's ahead. Every time you navigate a challenge successfully, you dismantle that belief piece by piece. There's also a psychological truth at play. The mind prefers consistency between belief and behavior. If you are acting toward a goal, your mind begins to adjust its beliefs to match your behavior. This is why starting even before you feel ready is so powerful. By moving, you send a message to yourself that you believe progress is possible, and your thoughts gradually align with that belief. In stillness, the opposite happens. Your lack of movement reinforces doubt's claim that nothing will change. It's important to understand that progress is not measured only by visible results. Sometimes the most powerful progress happens internally. Gaining clarity, learning a skill, or proving to yourself that you can follow through. These internal wins are critical because they become your defense against future doubt. Once you've experienced what it feels like to act in the presence of uncertainty, you know you can do it again, and that knowledge weakens doubt's grip in the future. Another reason doubt can't survive in motion is that action brings reality into focus. Doubt thrives in the hypothetical world, imagining the worst case scenario, exaggerating risks, and creating problems that may never happen. But reality often turns out to be far less threatening than the picture doubt paints. When you take action, you replace exaggerated fears with actual information, and more often than not, you realize the obstacles are smaller than you imagined. Even when they're not, you discover that you are more resourceful than you gave yourself credit for. Over time, repeated progress rewrites your story. Instead of seeing yourself as someone who hesitates, you start seeing yourself as someone who moves forward despite hesitation. This identity shift is powerful because it makes future action easier. Doubt may still try to creep in, but it's speaking to someone who now has a track record of progress. And that track record speaks louder. In the end, the surest way to weaken doubt is to refuse to give it the stillness it needs to grow. Keep moving. Take the next step, however small. Do the thing you've been postponing. Even if you feel uncertain, act. With each step forward, you are not only moving toward your goal, you are dismantling the very thing that has been holding you back. Motion is your greatest weapon against doubt, and progress, no matter the pace, will always loosen its grip until one day it lets go entirely. Breaking free from the grip of fear, doubt, or limitation is not a single dramatic moment where everything changes forever. It is not the cinematic scene where you take one bold action, the music swells, and suddenly the rest of your life flows effortlessly. In reality, breaking free is a continuous process, a choice you must make every day, often in small and unseen ways. Courage is powerful, but one act of it is not enough to carry you through a lifetime. Freedom from what holds you back requires consistent commitment, daily decisions, and an ongoing willingness to confront the thoughts and habits that try to pull you backward. The idea of a once and for all moment is appealing because it feels final and permanent. We want to believe that after one big leap, quitting the job, starting the business, ending the toxic relationship, or speaking our truth, we will never struggle with fear or doubt again. But life doesn't work that way. Even after you make a bold choice, challenges return, and old patterns try to reassert themselves. The same insecurities, temptations, or limiting beliefs that once held you captive will often find new ways to test you. If you are not actively choosing freedom every day, it is easy to slip back into the cage you worked so hard to escape. Daily choice means understanding that courage must be renewed. Just as muscles grow weaker without regular use, the strength to stay free fades if you don't exercise it. This is why so many people experience moments of breakthrough, but later feel like they've lost their progress. They treated courage as a one-time event rather than an ongoing practice. True liberation is about building habits that support the life you want, not relying on the energy of a single moment to carry you forward. Breaking free daily can be as simple as refusing to entertain the same self-defeating thoughts you believed yesterday. It can mean choosing to take one small step toward your goals instead of putting them off. It can mean saying no to the opportunities that don't align with your values, or yes to the ones that scare you because they demand growth. These may not seem like monumental acts, but when repeated consistently, they strengthen your freedom and make it harder for the old chains to wrap around you again. One of the reasons daily choice matters so much is because life is unpredictable. Some days will be easier than others. There will be days when you wake up motivated, confident, and ready to take on the world. And there will be days when you feel exhausted, discouraged, or tempted to give in to fear. It is on those hard days that the habit of daily choice becomes critical. You don't have to feel fearless to act with courage. You just have to decide that, despite how you feel, you will keep moving forward. Making freedom a daily choice also keeps you in the driver's seat of your own life. Without this conscious commitment, it's easy to drift into autopilot, allowing circumstances or other people's expectations to steer you. When you actively choose each day to live free, you reclaim control. You remind yourself that your life is shaped by your decisions, not by the limits imposed by fear, doubt, or outside pressures. There is also an important mental shift that happens when you treat freedom as an ongoing choice. You stop expecting perfection from yourself. If you believe you only get one chance to break free, any setback feels like total failure. But when you see it as a daily practice, you recognize that some days will be harder than others. And that's okay. You might stumble, make mistakes, or even fall back into old habits temporarily. The key is not to let a single slip become a permanent return to the old ways. Every new day is a new chance to choose differently. This mindset is especially powerful because it prevents you from being trapped by the past. People who see breaking free as a one-time act often get stuck in guilt or shame when they mess up, thinking they've undone all their progress. But when you know that freedom is a daily choice, you understand that yesterday's choices don't define today's potential. Every sunrise gives you a fresh opportunity to decide who you want to be and what direction you want to move in. It's important to realize that daily choice is not always glamorous. It often happens in quiet moments with no applause or recognition. It might mean waking up early to work toward your dream when no one is watching. It might mean walking away from a conversation that feeds negativity. It might mean confronting your own excuses and doing the hard thing anyway. These small, consistent actions are the bricks that build the life you want, and they are far more important than any single dramatic leap. Over time, the accumulation of these daily choices creates a powerful transformation. The person who once needed to summon all their courage for a single act will find that what used to feel terrifying now feels natural. That is the beauty of consistent action. It reshapes your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying to break free and start seeing yourself as someone who lives free. This identity shift makes future choices easier because they are no longer about forcing yourself to be brave. They are simply about being who you are. Breaking free is not a finish line you cross once. It is a path you walk every day. Some days you will take big strides, other days only small steps. But as long as you keep choosing forward motion, you remain free. The chains that once felt unbreakable lose their power over time, not because they disappear overnight, but because you no longer give them the strength to hold you. The truth is, freedom will always require maintenance. Old fears may resurface, and new challenges will arise. But when you've built the habit of daily choice, you are ready for them. You don't wait for a wave of courage to hit you. You create it through your decisions, your actions, and your persistence. In doing so, you ensure that the freedom you fought for is not temporary, but a permanent part of how you live. Doubt does not disappear the moment you decide to take action. It doesn't vanish after one victory, or even after several. It is persistent, subtle, and often cleverly disguised. Even when you are making progress, it finds ways to whisper in the background, questioning your worth, your ability, and your chances of success. It may tell you that your recent win was just luck, that you won't be able to do it again, or that someone else is better suited for the path you've chosen. This is why overcoming doubt is not a matter of defeating it once. It is about persisting despite its resistance, continuing to move forward, even when those whispers are loud. Persistence is the quality that keeps you in motion when your emotions try to hold you back. It is the decision to keep going when your mind offers you every reason to stop. Doubt's greatest weapon is repetition. It doesn't just whisper once. It repeats its message over and over, trying to wear you down until you believe it. This is why you must counter it with your own repetition. Consistent action, consistent self-belief, and consistent reminders of why you started in the first place. The resistance of doubt can be exhausting because it often shows up at the most vulnerable moments. When you're tired, when you've made a mistake, or when progress feels slow. In these moments, persistence is not about feeling unstoppable. It's about choosing not to give up. You might not feel confident, you might not feel certain, but persistence says, I'll keep going anyway. This steady determination is what weakens doubt over time, because the longer you persist, the more evidence you collect that its predictions are wrong. One of the most powerful truths about persistence is that it can outlast doubt's influence. Doubt thrives in moments of pause or hesitation, when you give it time to talk you out of action. But if you keep moving, even in small ways, it has less space to grow. Think of persistence as a steady march forward. It may not always be fast, but it keeps you in the fight. Each day you refuse to quit, you teach yourself that you are stronger than the voice that tries to hold you back. The whispers of doubt often disguise themselves as logic or reason. They may sound like practical advice, warning you to slow down, wait until you're more prepared, or avoid taking risks. But beneath that disguise, the intent is the same, to keep you from stepping into the unknown. This is where persistence is essential. It helps you recognize these whispers for what they are. By continuing to act despite them, you show yourself that progress is possible without having every answer in advance. Persistence also builds resilience. The more you practice moving forward in the presence of doubt, the more immune you become to its effects. At first, the whispers may feel overwhelming, but over time, they start to lose their emotional grip. You may still hear them, but you no longer automatically believe them. This mental strength is not built overnight. It comes from repeatedly proving to yourself that you can act without waiting for permission from your feelings. It's important to remember that persistence doesn't mean ignoring doubt entirely. Doubt can sometimes point out genuine weaknesses or risks that need to be addressed. The difference is in how you respond. Instead of letting doubt stop you, persistence allows you to use it as information. You can adapt, improve, and adjust your strategy without losing momentum. This ability to keep going while making necessary changes is what allows you to overcome obstacles without being derailed by them. Another key aspect of persistence is staying connected to your why. Doubt is most persuasive when your purpose feels distant or unclear. If you lose sight of why you started, it becomes easier to listen to the whispers telling you to quit. But when you keep your vision in front of you, reminding yourself daily of the goals, values, or dreams that drive you, it fuels your determination. This focus makes persistence easier because you have a reason to endure the discomfort and uncertainty that doubt creates. Overcoming doubt also requires patience, because persistence is not about instant results. You may have to keep going for a long time before you see the outcome you want. Doubt will use this delay against you, suggesting that your efforts aren't working or that you're wasting your time. But persistence understands that meaningful change is often invisible at first. It trusts the process, knowing that each step is building towards something greater, even if the proof hasn't shown up yet. In many ways, persistence is an act of quiet defiance. It's telling doubt, I hear you, but you don't get to decide for me. This defiance is what keeps you moving when others might give up. It's what allows you to keep showing up on the hard days, to keep trying after failures, and to keep believing in possibilities that others can't yet see. Every time you persist in the face of resistance, you take a little more power away from the voice of doubt. Eventually, persistence creates a track record that doubt cannot ignore. When you look back and see all the moments you continued despite uncertainty, you start to believe in your own strength. This self-belief becomes a shield against future whispers. Doubt may still visit, but it will be speaking to someone who has already proven they can endure, adapt, and overcome. Overcoming doubt is not about silencing it forever. It's about learning to move forward alongside it. The whispers may never fully disappear, but they will stop controlling your choices if you refuse to let them dictate your actions. Persistence is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be, and every step you take across that bridge weakens the hold doubt has over your life. In the end, doubt will always test you, but persistence is the answer every time. It is the steady heartbeat that keeps you going when the road feels long. It is the quiet strength that allows you to face each day with determination, no matter how loud the resistance. And it is the unshakable truth that as long as you keep moving forward, doubt cannot win. Doubt has a way of presenting itself as undeniable fact. It speaks with conviction, as if it knows the limits of your abilities better than you do. It tries to convince you that its voice is the voice of reality, that its warnings are truths you cannot escape. But the moment you begin to see doubt not as truth, but as a test, something shifts within you. You start to recognize that doubt's purpose is not to define you, but to challenge you, to ask whether you are willing to rise above its grip. True freedom is born in that recognition, because you are no longer trapped by the illusion that every thought of fear or uncertainty must be obeyed. When you treat doubt as truth, it becomes a cage. It limits what you attempt, where you go, and who you believe yourself to be. But when you see it as a test, you reclaim control. A test is something you can pass. It may be difficult, but it is not final. It does not hold permanent authority over you. It is a moment to prove your strength, resilience, and commitment. This perspective changes everything. Instead of asking, what if I can't? You begin asking, how can I show that I can? Rising above doubt does not mean you never feel it again. Freedom is not the absence of doubt. It is the power to act in spite of it. The presence of doubt simply means you are stepping into territory where growth is possible. It shows you are moving towards something meaningful, something that stretches your comfort zone. People who never feel doubt are rarely challenging themselves. They are living in safe, predictable patterns where nothing is at stake. By recognizing doubt as a test, you understand that its presence often signals you are on the right path, even if the voice in your head says otherwise. Seeing doubt as a test also helps you detach emotionally from it. When you believe doubt is truth, it feels personal. It feels like a verdict about your worth. But as a test, it becomes a challenge of skill and mindset rather than identity. It's no longer about whether you are good enough, but whether you are willing to respond with courage, persistence, and action. You stop defining yourself by the doubts you feel and start defining yourself by the choices you make despite them. One of the most liberating realizations is that doubt often exaggerates. It thrives on magnifying the worst case scenarios and shrinking the best possibilities. It tries to convince you that one failure means permanent defeat, or that one flaw means total inadequacy. By viewing it as a test, you can question its claims instead of accepting them blindly. You can ask, Is this really true, or is it just fear in disguise? This questioning breaks its authority over you. Rising above doubt is a practice. You prove to yourself through repeated action that you can move forward without having every answer, without feeling certain, and without waiting for the perfect moment. Each time you act in spite of doubt, you pass another test. And with every past test, you gain more confidence, not because the doubt is gone, but because you have evidence that you can function and succeed even when it is present. This is where true freedom lies, when doubt no longer determines your direction. Freedom from doubt's control is not loud or dramatic. It is often quiet, steady, and deeply personal. It is the inner knowledge that you are capable of making decisions based on your values, goals, and vision, not based on fear's warnings. It's the ability to look at doubt, hear its arguments, and still choose to move forward. This is strength at its most authentic because it comes from self-mastery rather than external reassurance. It's also important to understand that rising above doubt doesn't mean ignoring all risk or refusing to reflect. It means you assess challenges with a clear mind, not through the distortion of fear. You can acknowledge genuine obstacles without letting them paralyze you. You can plan wisely while still stepping forward boldly. In this way, recognizing doubt as a test actually sharpens your judgment because you learn to separate helpful caution from limiting fear. There is a kind of joy in proving doubt wrong, not to silence it forever, but to remind yourself of your capacity. Each time you rise above it, you add another story to your personal history of resilience. You start to carry yourself differently, with a quiet confidence that doesn't depend on constant external validation. You know that whatever tests come, you have faced similar ones before and prevailed. Over time, this perspective transforms how you experience life. Instead of avoiding situations that spark doubt, you begin to seek them out, knowing that on the other side of that discomfort lies growth. You realize that the moments that scare you the most are often the ones that will shape you the most. And because you no longer see doubt as a verdict against you, you are free to explore, experiment, and take risks without being crushed by the possibility of failure. True freedom comes when doubt is no longer your master. It may still walk beside you, whisper in your ear, and challenge your resolve, but it cannot dictate your future. You are free because you know it is just one voice among many, and not the one you must follow. You are free because you understand that its role is to test you, to see if you will back down or rise up. And you are free because, time and again, you choose to rise. In the end, the test of doubt is not about proving to the world that you are fearless. It is about proving to yourself that you are willing to move forward, even when fear is present. That is the essence of courage, not the absence of doubt, but the refusal to let it decide for you. When you live this way, you carry an unshakable freedom inside you. The chains of hesitation no longer bind you, and the voice of doubt becomes just another challenge you are ready to overcome. That is where true liberation is found, in the quiet, powerful choice to rise above.